What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be changing my slave cylinder in my rally car. So this thing behind me is my 2000 Subaru RS and it is a purpose-built rally car that I turned from a daily driver into a stage rally car. The reason I have to replace this slave cylinder is because during the last stage rally that we did, I ended up having to pump the clutch for quite a bit and shifting without the clutch because the slave cylinder went out. Now, it was an issue before the rally and I kind of just bled it a lot and I got it okay, but obviously it wasn't perfect. And after about 5 stages, it started to get really bad. And yeah, it added a lot of hassle, but there were so many other problems with the car that it really didn't matter because I wasn't too worried about driving quickly because of that. But all that's besides the point. If you want to go see rally footage, you should check out my channel, subscribe to go see the entire build. I showed most of it, but I'm going to get right into this swap really quick so I can show you guys if you actually are looking on how to change your slave cylinder on your Subaru. Now this is going to be for a pull type transmission. Now what I mean by a pull type transmission is as the throwout bearing locks into the pressure plate, as the slave cylinder pushes on the clutch fork, is it going to make the throwout bearing pull the pressure plate or push it? So those are the different styles of Subaru. So normally stock in the 2000 RS, it would have a push type slave cylinder. And with that, it would be completely different than this. A pull type comes in like the 02 to 05 WRXs, the 5 speeds, and they might be in some other years. So this is a JDM transmission, and because of that, it is a pull type. So make sure that when you order the part, order the right one for your year. So if you have a push type, make sure you get a push type slave cylinder because it is a little bit different. Essentially, they're doing the same thing and it's just this rod moving, but the way they mount on the transmission is a little bit different than this one does. All right, so first thing that I'm going to do is take off the air box and get a little bit more access to the slave cylinder. Now it's super easy to remove my air box because I don't have that many things in the way. So normally you would have your stock snorkel going over here to the inner fender well, and all that comes off pretty easily. But on my year Subaru, there's nothing complicated about it because I don't have a math sensor, I have a map, so I don't have to worry about unplugging anything, and so it literally just comes right off. Now if you have a WRX like this transmission would be out of, it's essentially the same thing just with a couple bolts holding it in somewhere around here, if you can imagine that, and then your throttle body coupler as well as the blow off valve hose or the bypass valve hose coming in somewhere over here. So once you do that, it'll all come up and you'll have just as much room as I do, but obviously there's a big turbo right here, so, well, not a big one, but there's a turbo here and I don't have one. So next step, I'm going to actually remove the clutch line, which I have a braided hose. You would have a flexible hose. If you've never changed it out, I would recommend going to a braided line. It does give you a little bit better feel, and it looks a little bit cleaner in that engine bay, and you can even delete the entire hard line in there like I did. So the next step is removing those 2 bolts holding it to the transmission. And once you get those 2 14mm bolts out, it's free. The bleed screw is an 8mm, and I'll throw a link into the description to the bleed screw that I actually bought with the right thread pitch in case you want to purchase a speed bleeder as well. So the difference in the actual bleeders is probably about 1/8 of an inch. You can kind of tell, and it does make a difference if you are trying to get like the last bit of air out of your slave cylinder. So I would definitely recommend that, especially if you do stuff like this and you mess with your car all the time. So definitely helps, saves you some time. That way you don't have to like pump the pedal 2 million times just to get all the air out. Now that we got the speed bleeder installed in here, we can actually just throw it right back in. So just throw both of your 14mm bolts back in and then throw the 12mm banjo bolt back in with your actual line coming from your master cylinder. Now that you got everything tight, you're actually ready to begin the bleeding process. So first thing you want to do, make sure your reservoir is completely full in your master cylinder. That way you don't pump that dry and you have to re-bleed your master cylinder. because that's just going to add more of a pain to things. It is the next day and in the evening, so we're going to hurry up and finish up this slave cylinder really quick. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your master cylinder is completely topped off on fluid. The next step is definitely easier if you have a second person, and that is to pump the clutch pedal about 20 to 30 times for the initial time until you start to get some pedal feel.
Several days later.
So that's the part that really helps if you have another person. That way they can pump and hold, because the next step, while someone is holding, you can also use a stick to prop it. I've done that before. You have to crack one of the bleeders open. Now, if you have a master cylinder with a bleed screw as well as the slave cylinder has a bleed screw, then I would start with the master cylinder because it is at the top of the chain. And once you get all the air out of that, move your way down to the slave cylinder. I recommend sticking a small rubber hose onto the end of your bleeder. That way, when you crack it open, you're not launching fluid all over your engine bay, as well as your engine and your paint. Now you have to repeat those steps of pumping and holding and then cracking a bleeder until you get all the air out of the system. That way you have good pedal feel and good pressure, and that'll let you know when you actually have the system completely bled and you don't have to worry about any more air in there. Pump again.
I pumped like 100 times.
And then hold. So make sure that as you're going through those steps of pumping and then relieving the pressure to get all the air out, that you keep your reservoir of your master cylinder completely topped off. If you let air get into the system, it's going to ruin all your progress, and you're going to kind of have to start over completely because you're going to let a big air pocket into the system, and then you're going to have to work really hard to get that out again. Once you get all the air out of the system, it should feel exactly like a stock pedal, or if it's been a while since you felt that because you had a bad slave cylinder like me, you shouldn't have very much free play in the clutch pedal. And once you actually get this fully bled, now is a good time to actually set the free play in your clutch pedal, and you can do that just by cracking the nut loose on the master cylinder push rod and then just screwing it either in or out, depending on if you need more free play or less free play. That's all I've got for this video. So as you can see, it's a pretty easy installation and you can take care of it with some basic hand tools, and it definitely helps to have a friend, but you can do it by yourself if you have a vacuum bleeder or if you just have a stick to prop up against your seat after you pump it. So I've done that quite a few times when I've been stranded. It's not recommended. It's a lot easier with somebody else to actually pump and hold for you, or a vacuum bleeder if you have one. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. If you're interested in seeing the entire build of this car, go check it out on my channel. That's all I got for this one.